The shuttle shuddered as it pushed deeper into the twilight. Nash Alden kept his eyes on the bulkhead, feeling the pressure change in his sinuses, tasting the recycled air that already carried a hint of brine. Fen tapped the mission brief on his datapad and shook his head. The engineer's calloused thumb left a greasy smudge on the screen. 3,000 years of human spaceflight, and we are still cleaning lubricant off our hands. Nash found it oddly reassuring. Alloz sat across from them, his iridescent skin dimmed to a nervous gray. The Lumith ambassador folded his hands and unfolded them again. He looked at Nash and then away. The Depthborn seized New Haven 7 days ago. The official demand arrived 2 days after that. A single transmission, untranslated and direct. Give us the Architect Codex or the colony is destroyed. Fen broke the silence. 42,000 civilians in that colony. He did not look up from his datapad. They have 3 weeks of air if the Depthborn let them keep recycling. They have 1 week if they do not. Nash nodded. He tapped his forefinger against his thumb in a steady rhythm. The motion helped him think. The Codex is worthless to them. It is worthless to us too, Alloz said. His voice carried a tremor. No one has decoded a single symbol in 600 years of trying. Then why do they want it so badly? Fen looked up. His eyes were hard. They are not stupid. They know it is unreadable, so what are they really after? The shuttle lurched. The landing struts engaged with a deep hydraulic groan. Nash felt the weight of the station press against the hull, the ambient pressure of a deep ocean atmosphere pushing from every side. The airlock cycled open. Depthborn guards waited on the other side. They stood motionless in the pressurized water, their segmented carapaces glowing a faint blue in the dim light. Each one carried a weapon that hummed with contained energy. Nash could feel the vibration through the deck plates. He adjusted his breathing mask. The seal was tight. The mixture was right. He stepped through the airlock and into the station. The water hit him like a wall of cold static. The station was designed for them, not for him. Every surface was damp. The bioluminescent panels lining the corridors cast long shadows on the walls. The guards moved ahead without a word. Their pincers clicked against the metal floor. Nash followed, his boots splashing through shallow pools of standing water. Alloz stayed close behind him, his skin now a pale shimmer. Fen brought up the rear, one hand resting on a tool pouch that held nothing but tools. The audience chamber opened before them. It was vast. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. The walls pulsed with organic light, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. In the center of the room, a raised platform supported a single figure. Gulm. The Depthborn commander was massive. His carapace was segmented and thick, the deep blue of abyssal water, with ridges that caught the bioluminescent glow and scattered it. 4 grasping arms emerged from his torso, each ending in sharp pincers that clicked when he shifted his weight. He did not stand. He perched, supported by the pressure of the water around him. Nash stopped at the edge of the platform. The guards took positions behind him, blocking the door. Gulm spoke. The translator unit on his chest rendered his guttural clicks into flat galactic standard. You are the human named Nash Alden. I am Nash said. You are old for your kind. The translator delivered the words without inflection. The blue glow on Gulm's carapace shifted as he leaned forward. I can see the silver in your skin threads. You have lived perhaps 70 of your cycles. 68, Nash said. Gulm clicked his mandibles twice. The sound was sharp. The Depthborn commander was frustrated. Your species is a blink in time. You burn bright and you burn out. You have no patience. You have no perspective. We have 3,000 years of perspective, Nash said. We are older than your hegemony. The room went still. The bioluminescent panels flickered once. Gulm's pincers tightened. You are an ancient species, he said. But you are a young one too. You age in decades. You forget in generations. You have no concept of the long game. Then tell me what the long game is, Nash said. Why do you want the Codex? The translator hesitated. Gulm's carapace flushed a deeper blue, the light dimming as he shifted his posture. The Codex is Architect technology. You have held it for 600 cycles. You have not decoded it. You cannot use it, so you will give it to us. And if we do not, then New Haven is destroyed, the colony and all 42,000 of your people. Fen made a sound behind him, low and sharp. Nash did not turn around. The Codex is useless, Nash said. It is a cube of crystal that hums when you hold it. It cannot be read. It cannot be weaponized. It cannot be used for anything. Gulm leaned forward again. His pincers opened and closed. The motion was slow, deliberate. You expect me to believe that a species that has held architect technology for 600 cycles has not found a way to use it. I expect you to believe the truth. The truth, Gomes' translator rendered the word with a hollow echo. Your species has been spacefaring for 3,000 cycles. You have seen empires rise and fall. You are patient in ways that unnerve us. You have had 600 cycles with the Codex, and you tell me it is nothing. Nash said nothing. Gomes' carapace pulsed. The blue light dimmed and then flared. He was thinking. The silence stretched. Nash counted the beats in his head. 15, 30, 45. Allow me to demonstrate, Nash said. He spoke calmly. His voice carried no urgency. Let me show you how harmless the Codex is. We have a reality bridge on our ship. I will open a portal and pass the Codex through it. You will see that it does nothing. No signal, no activation, no weapon. Gomes' pincers clicked once. A test, he said. You want a delay. I want you to see the truth with your own senses, Nash said. 3 days. Let me prepare the demonstration. If it convinces you, you release the colony. If it does not, you keep the Codex and destroy New Haven. The translator hummed. Gomes' carapace went dark for a moment, then flared bright again. He was weighing the options. 3 days, Gomes said. The word was flat. I expect failure. Your demonstration will fail, and then I will have a reason for war. Nash inclined his head. We will return to our ship. The guards parted as Gomes gestured with one pincer. The motion was dismissive. The audience was over. They walked back through the corridors in silence. The water sloshed against Nash's boots. The bioluminescent panels cast long shadows. The airlock cycled closed behind them. Fen grabbed Nash's arm the moment the pressure equalized. His voice was low and urgent. The Codex's signal strength has been fluctuating. It has been doing it for the last 4 hours. Nash stopped. He turned to face the engineer. Fen pulled out his datapad. The screen showed a graph with a jagged spike at the end. The void beacon, he said. It started receiving responses from something. Eloise stepped closer. His skin had gone pale again. Responses from what? That is the problem, Fen said. The source is not on any known frequency. It is not on any known dimension. Something is answering from beyond known space. Nash stood very still. He tapped his forefinger against his thumb. Once, twice, 3 times. The Depthborn were not after knowledge. They were not even after a weapon. They were afraid. They were terrified that humans had already decoded the Codex and were about to use it. The territorial aggression was a mask for panic. Gomes had looked at Nash and seen a species that had lived 3,000 years and seen everything. He could not accept that the Codex was harmless. He could not believe that humans had not found a way. Nash looked at Fen's datapad. The signal spike was still climbing. Something out there was listening, and it was answering. The water in the throne room pressed against Gomes' carapace with the familiar weight of home. He felt the currents shift as his advisors stirred, their fierce sweat threading through the chamber in bitter curls. 3 of them crowded the platform below him, their pincers clicking against the stone floor in an anxious rhythm. The second in command spoke first. His name was Crax, and his spawning pool had produced 7 warriors for the hegemony. He wanted another notch on his carapace. They are soft, Commander. Crax's mandibles clicked twice. Their ship struggled against our pressure. Their bodies squirm in our water. We could crush them before their hearts beat again. Gomes did not answer. He watched the phosphorescent glow of his own markings ripple across the far wall. The light shifted with his breathing. Slow, measured. The scholar pressed forward. A thin Depthborn named Tess, older than Gomes' own sire, with eye stalks that trembled when she was excited. Commander, the Codex is emitting again. Define again. Stronger, Thess's claws sketched a pattern in the water. The signal has changed. It was static before, chaotic. Now it has a structure. It repeats every 43 heartbeats, almost like a language. Gomes turned from the wall. He faced the scholar and let the currents settle around him. A trick. The humans have activated something. They are trying to signal their kind. Perhaps Thess's eye stalks did not stop trembling, but the signal is not human. We have analyzed their communication arrays. They are dormant. Crax slashed a claw through the water. Then we strike before the signal reaches anyone. We take the Codex. We end this. Gomes felt the old certainty rise in him. Short-lived species were reckless. They burned through decades like a surface dweller burned through air. They had nothing to lose because they would lose it all anyway in a blink. You could not negotiate with someone who had no stake in the future. You could only contain them. He clicked his mandibles twice. The sound cut through the chamber. Intensify monitoring, he told the scholar. I want every emission logged, every fluctuation. If the signal changes again, I am told before you record it. Thes bowed her carapace and withdrew. Cracks lingered. Commander, the demonstration is in 3 cycles. The humans will show us their weapon. They will try to bluff. Then we will watch them bluff. Gulm pushed off the platform and swam toward the exit. The water thickened as he moved into the corridor. The pressure increased. He felt it in his joints, in the membranes behind his eyes. Home. He did not go to his quarters. He went to the holding cells. The human colonists from New Haven were kept in a pressure-balanced chamber near the station's core. The water there was thin and warm, uncomfortable for a Depthborn. Gulm pressed his faceplate against the observation window and watched. There were 12 of them, adults and juveniles. They huddled together in the corner, their bodies pressed against each other for warmth. They had no bioluminescence. Their skin was pale and soft, like the bellies of deep-water fish. They should have been terrified. One of the adults, a female with dark hair plastered to her skull, held a juvenile against her chest. She was murmuring something. Gulm could not hear it through the barrier, but he saw her hand move. She was stroking the juvenile's back, slow, measured, like his own breathing. Another colonist, a male with a gash across his forearm, was tearing strips from his own garment. He wrapped the fabric around a second juvenile's leg. The wound was superficial. The gesture was not. They were caring for each other. Gulm felt the old certainty crack. Short-lived species did not invest in each other. They could not afford to. A bond that lasted 30 cycles was a waste of emotional resources. And yet these humans, with their starved lungs and their thin water and their certain death in 3 weeks, were building something he could not name. The female looked up. She saw him at the window. She did not flinch. She met his gaze and held it. Then she looked down at the juvenile in her arms and resumed her slow stroking. Gulm turned away. He was still processing the image when the message arrived. A Lumith relay carried through the station's communication conduits by a series of pressure pulses. The human diplomat requested a private conference before the demonstration. Gulm considered refusing. Then he remembered the female's eyes, unblinking, unafraid. He agreed. The conference chamber was a sphere of reinforced crystal, filled with water at a pressure that would have killed a human in seconds. Gulm entered alone. The human was already there, floating in the center of the sphere, encased in a suit of flexible material that pulsed with its own life support. Nash Alden, that was the name, tall for a surface dweller, thin. His hair was streaked with silver and his hands moved with a slow precision that Gulm recognized. The human was old, not in the way a Depthborn was old, with centuries of accumulated memory. Old in the way of a creature that had already spent most of its life. You asked for this, Gulm said. His voice resonated through the water. The human suit translated it into something the soft ears could process. Nash nodded. His eyes were steady. Commander, I need you to understand something. The Codex has been in human possession for 2,000 years. Gulm's mandibles clicked. A lie. No, Nash's voice was flat, completely flat. No tremor, no hesitation. We found it in the ruins of a dead world orbiting a dead star. We have never decoded a single symbol. We have tried. We have failed. For 600 years, the story you were told was that we had it for 6 centuries. That was the cover. The truth is older. Why are you telling me this? Because the signal has changed. Nash's hand drifted to a control panel on his wrist. A display flickered to life, showing a waveform that pulsed in a steady rhythm. We have been monitoring it for the last 3 days. It is not random anymore. It is a countdown. Gulm studied the waveform. The rhythm matched the scholar's report, 43 heartbeats, repeating. To what? Nash took a breath. His shoulders rose and fell. We do not know, but we know who built the Codex. The architects vanished for a reason. Something made them leave, something they were afraid of. And the Codex is a beacon. It has always been a beacon. It is calling something here. Then destroy it. We cannot. The Codex is indestructible. We have tried. Nash's voice remained flat, but his hands were shaking. The suit translated the tremor into a subtle vibration in the water. But we can move it. We have a device. The reality bridge. We can open a portal to a dead dimension and push the Codex through. It will be gone. The signal will stop. And the cost? Nash met his gaze again. The same look the female had given him through the observation window. Unblinking, unafraid. The bridge requires a constant power source. Once the Codex is through, the portal must collapse within 4 seconds. If it stays open longer, the two realities begin to bleed. Neither of us wants that. Gulm felt the currents shift around him. He studied the human's face, the silver hair, the steady eyes, the hands that would not stop shaking. "Why would you do this?" Gulm asked. "You are giving up your greatest artifact, your legacy, your proof that you are older than us." Nash smiled. It was a thin expression, like a crack in a pressure seal. "Commander, we have been carrying the weight of the deep for 2,000 years. It is time to put it down." Gulm did not answer. He floated in the crystal sphere and felt the old certainty dissolve completely. A pulse ran through the water, a low bass thrum that vibrated through his carapace. It came from the direction of the artifact storage bay. "The void beacon." Gulm turned to the wall display. The readings were changing. The beacon's signal had shifted. It was no longer a random broadcast. It was repeating a pattern. A countdown. And the countdown was accelerating. The cold of the partition glass pressed against Nash Alden's palm. On the other side, Gulm floated in his pressurized water, 4 arms folded across his segmented carapace. The observation deck was a long chamber, half-flooded, split by a transparent wall that held back an ocean's weight. 2 species, 2 atmospheres, 1 sheet of reinforced polymer between them. Nash tapped his forefinger against his thumb, once, twice. The plan sat between them like a third presence. Gulm clicked his mandibles twice. His voice came through the deck speakers, translated and flattened. "Your engineer reports readiness." Nash glanced back at Fen, who knelt beside the reality bridge's control panel. The ring of black metal sat in the center of the dry side, its inner surface shimmering like disturbed oil. Fen looked up, a smudge of lubricant on his cheek, and nodded once. "The bridge is calibrated," Nash said. "Power requirements are extreme. The fold space anchor will need a steady source to hold the tether open." Gulm's left claws twitched, and the anchor collapses after 30 seconds. "Yes," stranding whoever pilots it through. Nash said nothing. He did not need to. The bulkhead door hissed open. Alloz stepped into the observation deck, his iridescent skin catching the dim emergency lighting. He folded his hands neatly and stood in the corner, watching. The Lumith ambassador's large eyes did not blink. He looked like a man waiting for a building to fall. Fen stood up from the control panel. His voice was tight. "Nash, we have company." The holotank in the center of the room flickered to life. Fen had patched into the station's sensor array. The display showed the system's edge, a cluster of signatures that resolved into ship-class masses, moving slowly, holding position. Gulm's translator crackled. "Those are not my vessels." "Not human either," Fen said. He tapped the display. "These emissions are old. The signal structure is unfamiliar. Whatever they are not broadcasting on any known frequency." The observation deck fell silent. The water on Gulm's side rippled as he shifted his bulk toward the holotank. The only sound was the low hum of the station's pressure systems, working against the abyss. Alloz spoke from the corner. His voice was soft but carried. "The thought amplifier readings from those ships are intense. Extreme hostility. The signal is clear." Nash turned to face him. "You brought a thought amplifier." "I brought every tool I could carry," Alloz said. His large eyes met Nash's. "What I am reading is not mere anger, it is predatory. These minds do not understand negotiation, they understand acquisition." Gulm's low growl vibrated through the deck plating. "You brought psionic devices into my territory without informing me." "I brought survival tools," Alloz replied, "into a zone where survival is uncertain. Forgive the breach of protocol." Nash raised a hand before Gulm could respond. "They are listening. You heard Alloz. They have been watching since before we arrived. They are waiting for us to act." Gulm's claws tightened. "The Codex, they want it." "They want something," Nash said. "We cannot know what, but we know they will not wait forever." He walked to the partition and placed his palm flat against the cold glass again. The water on the other side pressed against the barrier, 1,000,000 tons held back by engineering and luck. "So we move first," Nash said. Gulm's head tilted, a small servomotor sound, skeptical. "I will pilot the anchor through the portal," Nash said. "I will hold it open from the other side. 30 seconds, the anchor collapses, the portal closes, the Codex stays here." The silence stretched. Gulm's translator clicked on. "You would die for a relic you cannot read." Nash lowered his hand from the glass. He turned to face the Depthborn commander directly. I would die so my species does not have to fight yours over a thing we do not understand. Gulm did not move. His forearms remained folded. The carapace glow on his chest pulsed once, slow. Fen broke the stillness. You are out of your mind, Alden. Probably, Nash said. He did not smile. Eloise stepped forward. The unknown ships are powering weapons. There is no time for a different plan. Gulm's mandibles clicked once, twice. A pause, then he spoke. You short-lived creatures have a sickness. You throw your lives at problems as if time were cheap. Nash met his gaze. Because it is. For you, a century is a negotiation. For me, it is the difference between a parent holding their child and a monument in a graveyard. We do not hoard years, we spend them. Gulm's growl deepened. Not aggression, something else. Recognition. The holotank flickered. Fen cursed. The void beacon countdown just hit 0. Nash turned. The spherical device on Fen's equipment table, ancient, etched with circuits that glowed in irregular patterns, began to pulse. The light cycled faster, faster. I did not trigger it, Fen said. The reality bridge behind him activated. Not with the controlled hum of calibration, with a tearing sound, a rip in the air itself. The black metal ring did not open where they had aimed it, into the empty space beyond the station's hull. It opened directly in the observation deck, 10 meters from where Nash stood, 5 meters from the partition. The portal shimmered into existence, its edges crackled with something that was not electricity. Ozone flooded the air, sharp, biting. Through the opening, Nash saw nothing, not empty space, not a destination, nothing. And then something moved. A shape resolved in the darkness beyond the portal. Massive, dark energy condensed into a form that did not reflect light. It extended toward the opening, a limb. Not flesh, not metal, something in between. Eloise staggered back, his iridescent skin flickered. The thought amplifier is overloading. That presence, it is not one mind. It is many, old, hungry. Gulm slammed a claw against the partition. The glass shuddered. My troops are moving. We will hold the station. Nash's hand found the fold space anchor, still secured to its mounting. The obsidian rod hummed, contained energy vibrating through his fingers. The limb from the portal reached further. Fen grabbed Nash's arm. You cannot go through that. We do not know where it leads. We know what it leads to, Nash said, and it will not stop at the Codex. Gulm's voice came through the speakers, low and steady. Human, you are certain. Nash looked at the portal, at the limb of dark energy pushing through, bending the light around it. At Eloise, pale and shaking, his hands pressed against the wall. At Fen, still gripping his arm, refusing to let go. He looked back at Gulm. I am certain. Gulm pressed his own claw against the glass, mirroring Nash's earlier gesture. The barrier between them held. Then go, Gulm said, and know that your species will be remembered by mine. Nash pulled the anchor from its mount. The obsidian rod hummed in his hands. The portal pulsed, pulling at the air around it, and the limb reached further still, almost to the Codex, almost to the center of the deck. He took 3 steps toward the opening. Behind him, Fen called out. Eloise said something he did not hear. The portal shuddered, and through it, the limb of dark energy began to withdraw, pulling back, as if something on the other side had sensed that a new variable had entered the equation. Nash stopped at the threshold. The limb froze. Silence, the station held its breath. And then the portal's edges collapsed inward, not closed, something else. The ring of black metal began to distort, stretching as if the space around it was folding into itself. Fen grabbed Nash's arm again and pulled. The limb lunged. The anchor's casing bucked and Fen drove his weight against it. Heat screamed through the metal. The power gauge was dropping faster than the safety limit, 3.7 seconds to critical failure. The reality bridge behind him howled. He cranked the bypass valve. Nothing. The pressure differential was too high. Something came through the portal. It came as a color that should not exist and a shape that kept changing. An extension of it pushed into the room. Not a limb, not a tentacle. A suggestion of reaching, rendered in silver light that burned the eyes. It slid past the anchor housing without touching it. Gulm's voice cut through the noise. Fire. 12 Depthborn soldiers raised their weapons. The pulses struck the entity and passed straight through. The silver light did not flicker. The reaching shape did not slow. Again, Gulm ordered. Another volley, same result. Fenn's hands kept moving. He rerouted the primary coolant line to the secondary sink. The temperature climbed anyway. His fingers were blistering. He did not stop. Nash was the only one who stepped forward. He was watching the entity with a stillness that did not belong in a room full of screaming alarms. His eyes tracked it. His thumb tapped against his forefinger. 3 taps. 4. Then he spoke. "It's after the Codex." Eloise pressed himself against the far wall. His lumith skin had gone pale blue. "You cannot know that." Nash was already moving. He crossed to the security alcove where the Codex sat in its containment cradle. A crystal cube the size of a skull. The surface moved like smoke in a jar. He pulled it free. The entity's reaching shape turned. It locked onto the Codex with an attention that felt like weight. The room compressed. Fenn felt the pressure in his chest. The anchor housing groaned. Nash walked toward the portal. "No," Fenn said. Nash kept walking. "Nash, the portal will collapse in less than 2 seconds after the Codex crosses. You'll be on this side or that side. There is no middle." Nash did not slow down. Gulm's voice came from behind them. Different now, not a command, something else. "Shields up, protect the human." The Depthborn soldiers shifted. They formed a line between Nash and the entity. Their carapaces glowed. Their weapons raised in a wall of interlocking metal. They did not fire. They simply stood there. Fenn saw Gulm's mandibles click once, twice. The commander had not moved from his position, but he had given the order. Nash reached the portal. The entity's reaching shape was 3 meters from him. The Depthborn shields were 2 meters from the entity. Nash was 1 meter from the shimmering edge of the bridge. The air tasted like ozone and burnt salt. He threw the Codex. It arced through the portal. The cube rotated once. The patterns on its surface flared bright. Then it crossed the threshold and disappeared. The entity went after it. The reaching shape collapsed inward. It pulled through the portal like water down a drain. The silver light stretched and thinned, and then it was gone. The portal began to close. Fenn watched it happening. The edges of the shimmer folded inward. The ring of black metal went dark at the bottom, and the dark spread upward. It was closing too fast. It was closing faster than the calculations had predicted. Nash was still standing at the edge. A fragment of the portal's light caught his left arm. It wrapped around his sleeve. The fabric smoked. The edge of the tear pulled at him. Fenn grabbed him. He locked both hands around Nash's right arm and pulled. The heat was incredible. The smell of burning cloth. Nash's sleeve was gone. The skin underneath was blistering. "Pull back," Fenn shouted. Nash looked at him. It was a look Fenn would remember for the rest of his life. Not fear, not regret. Nash was tired, that was the thing. He was very tired, and he was very calm, and he was already gone. Nash mouthed 2 words. "Trust me." Then he pushed Fenn away. The push was deliberate and clean. Fenn stumbled backward and his hands came empty. Nash turned toward the closing tier. He stepped into it. The portal sealed behind him. The ring went dark. The shimmer stopped. The reality bridge was a circle of dead metal and silence. Fenn stood there with his burned hands hanging at his sides. The alarms were still screaming. The anchor was still overheating. He could hear Gulm's soldiers breathing hard. He could hear Eloise whispering something in Lumith that might have been a prayer. He did not hear Nash. The silence stretched. Then the void beacon made a sound. It was a sound Fenn had never heard from it, not the deep thrum of its broadcast, not the pulse of its dimensional signal. A voice, human, distorted by distance and interference and something Fenn could not name. It said one word. "Hold." Fenn's knees gave out. Gulm crossed the room in 4 strides. His massive clawed hand closed around Fenn's shoulder and pulled him upright. The Depthborn commander's carapace was hot. His mandibles clicked once. "That was your human." "Yes." Gulm looked at the dead portal ring. Then he looked at the void beacon. The voice was already gone, but the signal was there. A new line on the display, a new frequency, a new point of origin. "Where is he now?" Fenn shook his head. He did not know, nobody knew. The Codex was gone, the entity was gone, Nash was gone. But the beacon was still broadcasting. And somewhere on the other side of a collapsed reality, a human voice was telling them to hold. Gulm turned to his soldiers. "Get me a connection to the Depthborn fleet. Priority code bitter water. I need a lock on that beacon's origin point." Fenn looked at the portal ring. Dead metal, cold silence. He looked at his hands, burned, empty. He looked at the beacon display. The signal was stable, the voice was not coming back, but the line was open, a thread across a gap that should not exist. Eloise stepped forward, his voice was very small. What do we do now? Fen did not answer. He was watching the display. The signal was not drifting. It was holding position, like someone was waiting, like someone had anchored themselves to a fixed point and was holding the door open from the other side. He thought of Nash's face, the calm, the tiredness, the trust. Fen pulled the vent cover off the anchor housing. He started working. The acrid smell of burnt metal and ozone clung to the observation deck. Emergency lighting cast long, wavering shadows across the warped floor panels. Fen knelt where Nash had stood, his fingers tracing the scorch mark that was all that remained of the man. Gulm stood on the other side of the broken partition. Water cascaded in a steady waterfall from the breached section, pooling and draining through the deck grates. The Depthborn commander stared at the sealed portal site. The ring of black metal sat inert, its inner surface a dull gray instead of the shimmering oil slick it had been. Fen's hands clenched into fists. He pushed himself to his feet and turned to face the alien. You did this, his voice was raw. If you had not threatened us, if you had not pushed, none of this would have happened. Gulm's mandibles clicked once, twice. The sound was hollow in the quiet. Your species kept a dangerous artifact on a vulnerable colony, the Depthborn said. You brought the weapon to my station. You opened a door that should have remained closed. But his tone lacked venom. His clawed hands hung loose at his sides. Fen stepped closer. Water splashed around his boots. He threw himself into that thing for you, Fen said. For all of us. He let it take him so your people and mine would not burn the galaxy over a box we cannot even read. Gulm said nothing. His blue carapace glow pulsed low, slow, a submissive rhythm. Eloise moved between them. The Lumith ambassador's iridescent skin flickered pale green, and his large, dark eyes seemed even larger in the dim light. He folded his hands and spoke softly. The entity has retreated, Eloise said. Its departure left a residue. I can feel it. Fen turned. Feel what? Eloise gestured toward the void beacon. The spherical device sat on a console, its etched circuits pulsing with an irregular pattern. The surface shimmered as if something moved just beneath it. A signal, Eloise said. Very faint, in the same dimensional space where Nash was pulled. Fen crossed to the console. He placed his palm flat on the beacon's surface. A low thrum traveled up his arm. It felt like a heartbeat, distant, irregular, human. He's alive, the words came out as a whisper. Possibly, Eloise said. He may be trapped in the space between realities. The Codex is gone, but the beacon now relays his voice. Gulm waded through the water. He stopped at the edge of the human section where the partition had shattered. His 4 arms hung still. I am making an offer, he said. Fen looked up, his jaw tightened. I do not want your offers. You will want this one. The Depthborn commander's pincers opened and closed slowly. He made a sound deep in his throat, not a threat, something softer. My people will help retrieve him, Gulm said. Fen's hand dropped from the beacon. Why? Gulm's carapace glow flickered. He looked at the scorch mark on the deck where Nash had vanished. Your sacrifice changed my perspective, he said. I thought your species had no future because you die so fast. You burn bright and gutter out. There is no weight to a short life, no legacy. He paused, his segmented head tilted. But you die for each other. That is a future I did not understand. Fen stared at him. The words hung in the air between them, heavy as the ocean pressing against the station walls. He is one man, Gulm continued. One short-lived creature who owed nothing to my people. He threw himself into an unreadable doom because he believed it would spare both our species a war. That is not nothing. That is a weight I cannot ignore. Eloise made a soft sound, a breath of relief. Fen wanted to hate the alien. He wanted to keep the anger burning hot and clean, but it cracked. He saw Nash's face in his mind, Nash stepping toward the portal, Nash mouthing the words. Trust me. You have no idea how to navigate human dimensional physics, Fen said. His voice was rough. Your technology is pressure-based. It operates in fluid environments. You do not have the systems for this. Then show us. Fen looked at the anchor. The meter-long rod of obsidian lay on a workbench, cracked down its length. The hum that usually came from it had faded to a whisper. He picked it up. The polished surface was warm against his calloused fingers. "The anchor is damaged," he said. "The power surge that collapsed the portal forced feedback through the crystal lattice. It will take time to repair." "How much time?" "Hours, maybe less if I have help." Gulm stepped forward. Water streamed from his carapace. "You will have whatever you need. My engineers will follow your instructions. We will open a new bridge and retrieve your man." Fen set the anchor back on the bench. He rubbed a hand across his face. The lubricant smudge on his cheek smeared. He did not care. "The power required will drain the station's reserves," he said. "Both species become vulnerable. The ships that were watching, they are still out there." Eloise nodded. "I have been monitoring them. They withdrew the moment the entity vanished. They are waiting." "For what?" "I do not know, but they appeared satisfied, as if the outcome met their expectations." Fen looked at the void beacon. Its pulse had steadied. The heartbeat rhythm was clearer now. One beat, a pause, another beat. "Hold," Nash's voice said, distant, thin, but audible. Fen closed his eyes. "All right," he said. "We build a new bridge, we pull him back." He turned to Gulm. "But if this is a trap, if you try to take the Codex or claim the beacon or harm any human on this station, I will find a way to flood your entire world with vacuum. Understood?" Gulm's mandibles clicked once. "Understood, and if you fail to retrieve your man, I will ensure the colony at New Haven receives full Depthborn protection. My word is bound to the spawning pool." Fen nodded. He picked up the anchor and headed toward the engineering bay. The dim emergency lighting followed him. His boots echoed on the metal deck. Behind him, the void beacon pulsed. "Hold." The word hung in the air. The rescue attempt had to begin within hours. The power draw would leave the station blind and defenseless. And somewhere beyond the station walls, in the crushing pressure of the deep, the unknown watchers waited. Fen stopped at the door. He looked back at Gulm. The Depthborn commander stood motionless, his blue glow the only color in the wrecked room. "One more thing," Fen said. "When we bring him back, I want to be the one who tells him you called his species impressive." Gulm's pincers opened, closed. "I did not say impressive. I said I understood." "Close enough." Fen walked through the door. The observation deck fell silent. Water dripped. The beacon pulsed, and somewhere between realities, a man held on. The deck plates hummed a low, wrong note. Fen felt it through his boots, through his knees, up into his spine. The station's power core was singing a frequency it was never designed to hit. He stood in the core chamber with a datapad in one hand and a coolant line in the other. The air was wet and hot. Condensation ran down the walls in sheets. Depthborn engineers moved around him, their segmented carapaces clicking against the metal grates. They kept their distance. They did not trust him. Gulm stood at the entrance, his four arms folded across his chest. The blue glow of his carapace pulsed slow and steady, watching. Fen ran the numbers again. He did not want to be wrong. 40% above rated output. The core would hold for maybe 90 seconds before the containment fields started to tear. After that, the station would become a rapidly expanding cloud of plasma and shattered alloy. 42,000 humans somewhere above. An unknown number of Depthborn in the surrounding waters. All of it gone. He set the datapad down. "It works," he said, "but we blow the station to do it." A Depthborn technician clicked its mandibles. The sound was sharp, dismissive. It turned to Gulm and spoke in the bubbling language of its kind. Fen did not need a translator for the tone. Gulm responded with a single guttural syllable. The technician fell silent. Then Gulm turned to Fen. "This is unacceptable. You are asking us to destroy our own territory, to kill our own." "I'm asking you to save a man." "The odds are not calculable. We do not operate on less than 99% certainty for a core overload. That is engineering protocol. That is survival logic." Fen wiped sweat from his forehead. It left a smear of grease across his palm. He looked at Gulm and felt something cold settle in his chest. Not anger, not desperation, just clarity. "We live short lives," Fen said. "Every moment is a gamble. This one is worth it." Gulm's glow flickered. His mandibles worked silently for a long moment. "You would bet everything," Gulm said. "Your life, your species, this station, all of it for one man." "He would do it for me." "That is not an answer. It's the only answer we have." The silence stretched. The core hummed louder. The deck plates vibrated harder. Fen watched Gulm's segmented face and saw something shift behind those dark, liquid eyes, something that looked like understanding, or the beginning of it. Gulm spoke to his engineers, short, clipped phrases. The bubbling language carried no emotion that Fen could read, but the technicians straightened. They moved to their stations. They began rerouting power feeds. Gulm looked at Fen. "Do it." Fen did not hesitate. He turned to the control panel and initiated the overload sequence. His fingers moved across the interface with the muscle memory of 30 years in engineering bays. Switches, sliders, confirmations. The core responded with a deep, building groan. The lights flickered. The deck lurched. Fen grabbed the handrail and held on. The station trembled like a living thing caught in a current. Alarms began to sound in distant corridors. The core's pitch rose until it was a physical pressure against Fen's chest. Then the reality bridge activated. The ring of black metal 2 meters across shimmered. Its inner surface turned from oil-slick iridescence to a flat, silent void. Light did not penetrate it. Sound did not cross it. It was a hole in the world. Fen stared into it and saw nothing. Then he saw Nash. The image was hazy, flickering. Nash stood on the other side of the portal in a space that was not space. His clothes were torn. His face was pale. His hand gripped the crystalline cube of the Architect Codex against his chest. The artifact glowed with a soft, pulsing light that matched no wavelength Fen had ever seen. Nash looked up. Their eyes met across the divide between realities. Fen's throat tightened. He opened his mouth to shout, but no words came. There were no words for this. Nash moved first. He raised the Codex above his head. His arm shook with the effort. The artifact blazed brighter, patterns swirling across its surface like slow smoke catching fire, and then Nash threw it. The Codex crossed the portal. It left Nash's hand and tumbled through the void. The artifact spun once, twice, 3 times. Fen watched it come and he did not think. He reached out. His fingers closed around the cube's cold surface. The impact drove him back a step. The Codex was heavier than it looked. It hummed against his palm like a second heartbeat. He looked up. The portal was collapsing. The edges were fraying. The stable ring shuddered. Nash was still on the other side, still fading, still reaching toward the light that was closing around him like a fist. "No," Fen whispered. The portal contracted. Then Gulm barked an order. The Depthborn soldiers moved as one, 12 of them. They stepped forward and pressed their hands to the reality bridge's power couplings. Their carapaces flared bright blue. Their personal power reserves drained into the machine. The portal stabilized. Fen stared. Gulm's glow dimmed. His arms trembled, but he did not pull back. None of them did. "Pull him through," Gulm said. His voice was strained. "Now." Fen dropped the Codex. It clattered against the deck. He lunged for the portal and reached through with both arms. The cold hit him like a wall. It was not the cold of water or ice. It was the cold of absence, of places where nothing had ever lived. He felt his fingers go numb. He felt his lungs seize, but he kept reaching. His hand found Nash's collar. He pulled. Nash came through the portal like a body breaking the surface of a drowning sea. He hit the deck hard. His skin was cold to the touch. His eyes were closed, but his chest moved. He was breathing. Fen fell beside him. "You idiot," Fen muttered. "You absolute idiot." Nash's lips moved. No sound came out. Then his eyes opened. They found Fen's face. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Told you to trust me," Nash whispered. The portal sealed behind him, with a sound like a door slamming shut in a deep ocean. Fen pressed his forehead against Nash's shoulder. The vibration of the core was fading. The station was stabilizing. Gulm and his soldiers slumped against the walls, their glow barely visible, their sacrifice written in the dimness of their carapaces. The Codex rested on the deck between them. It began to glow. Not the soft pulse from before, a brighter light, a sharper one. The patterns on its surface moved faster, resolving into shapes that looked almost like letters, almost like meaning. A voice came from the artifact. It was not a translation. It was not a sound that passed through the air. It resonated directly in Fen's skull. A deep, layered tone that spoke a language his mind should not have understood. But he understood it. The architects are still listening. Nash sat up. His hand found the Codex. The light crawled up his arm and into his chest. His silver-streaked hair lifted as if caught in a static field. He looked at Fen. His eyes were full of stars. "They heard us," Nash said. "All of us, every signal, every cry for help, every moment of silence. They have been listening this entire time." The Codex pulsed once. Then the lights in the station went dark. The medical bay smelled of recycled air and something sharp, something chemical that clung to the back of Nash's throat. He lay on a table that was never designed for human spines, its surface too cold and too hard, and he watched the ceiling plates drip condensation in a slow rhythm. The Architect Codex sat on a stand beside him. Its crystalline surface swirled with patterns that moved like deep water, and the low thrum of it vibrated through the table and into his bones. Gulm stood at the foot of the table. His segmented carapace glowed a muted blue, and his forearms were folded across his chest in a posture that might have been patience or might have been exhaustion. The bioluminescent light reflected across Nash's face, turning his tired features into a mask of shadow and soft color. Fen leaned against the far wall, his arms crossed, a fresh smear of lubricant on his jaw that he had not bothered to wipe away. He had not stopped looking at Nash since they pulled him from the portal chamber, like he expected Nash to vanish again if he blinked too long. Eloise sat at a small desk in the corner, his iridescent skin catching the dim light as he wrote reports with careful, precise strokes. He had not spoken in 20 minutes. He was taking notes. Nash broke the silence first. "The void is not empty," he said. Gulm's mandibles clicked once, a question. "It's full of light," Nash continued. "Light that thinks, light that watches. It's been there since before any of us evolved, before the Depthborn crawled out of your deep oceans, before humans stood upright on the savannah." Fen shifted his weight. "The architects." "Yes," Nash pressed his palm flat against the table and pushed himself up into a sitting position. His arm ached where the portal energy had burned through his sleeve. The skin underneath was pink and tender. "They built the Codex as a test, a filter, a door that only opens one way." Gulm's carapace flickered from blue to a deeper indigo. "What does it test?" "Worth," Nash said. The Codex hummed louder. The patterns on its surface began to slow, then stopped entirely. The crystal went still and dark for one heartbeat, two. Then it projected an image into the air above the table. Fen pushed off the wall and stepped closer. Eloise looked up from his notes, his large, dark eyes fixed on the light. It was a map. A galaxy rendered in lines of pale blue light, each star a point of steady glow. But some of those points were marked with a different color, a soft gold that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Those are the hidden worlds," Nash said. "The places the architects left behind, places they sealed away until someone proved they were ready to find them." Gulm leaned forward, the glow of the map reflected in his compound eyes. "Ready for what?" The Codex responded. The voice was not a sound that came through the air. It vibrated directly in Nash's skull, a resonance that settled behind his eyes and spread down his spine. It was not male or female. It was not even organic. It felt like a tuning fork struck against the bones of his skull. "We seek students, not warriors." Gulm reared back. His pincers opened and closed in a rapid succession of clicks. "How is it speaking? It has not been decoded in 600 years. "It doesn't need decoding," Nash said. "It was never meant to be decoded by analysis or computation. It was meant to be opened by action, by sacrifice, by a species that would give itself up for another." The Codex pulsed once, a confirmation. The map shifted. Lines of gold began to connect the marked stars, forming a web that spread across the projection. A network, a system of pathways that linked the hidden worlds to each other. Reality bridges, Nash realized. The architects had built a transportation network that spanned the entire galaxy. They had just been waiting for someone to prove they deserved to use it. Fen let out a breath. So the unknown ships, the ones that were powering weapons, those were the architects. "They were watching," Nash said. "They were assessing. They wanted to see what we would do when we faced extinction. Would we fight? Would we flee? Would we try to buy time with lies and promises?" Gulm's glow dimmed, and what did they see? Nash met the commander's compound eyes. They saw a human step into a collapsing portal to strand an artifact that could have saved one species at the cost of annihilating another. They saw a Depthborn commander agree to sacrifice his station to pull that human back. They saw two species that had never trusted each other choose to risk everything for strangers. The Codex vibrated again. The resonance was softer this time, almost gentle. "You have passed." The words hung in the air like smoke. Eloise set down his stylus. His iridescent skin flickered through a pattern of colors that Nash did not recognize, but the tone of it was clear. Relief, wonder, awe. 600 years, Eloise said quietly. 600 years of every intelligence in the galaxy trying to crack that crystal, running it through every decoder, every translator, every pattern recognition system ever built. And the answer was never in the crystal at all. "It was in us," Nash said. The weight of what the Codex had revealed settled over the room like a blanket. Nash let himself feel it for a moment. The exhaustion was bone-deep, but there was something else beneath it, something warm and steady. Fenn broke the silence with a sound that was half laugh and half groan. "So let me get this straight," he said. "We almost started a war. We almost got ourselves killed. We blew up an entire station's power core. And the whole time the architects were just sitting there waiting to see if we'd be nice to each other." "Essentially," Nash said. "That's insane. It's also the reason we're still alive." Fenn shook his head, but there was no heat in it. A tired grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. "The Council is going to lose their minds when they hear about this. There'll be hearings, investigations, budget reviews, trade agreements that take longer to negotiate than human lifetimes." Gulm's mandibles clicked in a pattern that Nash had not heard before. A short, sharp rhythm, then another, then a third. The commander was laughing. The sound was not anything a human throat could produce. It was the grinding of stone against stone, the rattle of shells in a deep current. But the meaning was unmistakable. Gulm's carapace brightened from indigo back to blue, and the glow was warmer now. "The Council can argue," he said. "The Depthborn will sign whatever agreements are necessary. You saved my species from a war we could not win against an enemy we did not understand. That debt will be repaid." Nash swung his legs off the table and stood. His knees protested. His arm throbbed, but he stood. "It's not a debt," he said. "It's a partnership. We saw something in each other that the architects needed us to see. We don't need to owe each other anything. We just need to remember what we learned here." Gulm's head tilted, a gesture of curiosity. "And what did you learn, human?" Nash thought about the void, the light that watched. The moment he had thrown the Codex through the portal, not knowing if it would work, not knowing if he would survive, not knowing anything except that he had to try. "That dying for something is easy," he said. "Living for it is harder, and we have a very long time to live." Fenn walked over and clapped a hand on Nash's shoulder. The grip was firm, and the relief in it was plain. "Next time you decide to sacrifice yourself, give me some warning. I'd like to be in a different room." "You'd follow me into the portal anyway." "I'd complain about it first. That's my right as an engineer." Eloise stood and folded his hands neatly in front of him. The Lumith ambassador's large eyes were fixed on the Codex, which had gone dark again, its patterns still and waiting. "The implications of this discovery cannot be overstated," he said. "The architect's hidden worlds, the reality bridge network, if it is functional, it would connect every major species in the galaxy. Trade, communication, travel. The political landscape would shift entirely." "And the military landscape," Gulm added. "A fleet that could appear anywhere in an instant, no warning, no defense." "Which is why we need to control access," Nash said. "The Codex chose us. That means we have a responsibility to use it carefully, not to hoard it, not to weaponize it, to share it with species that prove themselves ready." Gulm's glow pulsed once, a slow, steady rhythm. "And who decides who is ready?" "That's the question we'll spend the next 100 years answering." Nash walked to the observation deck. The partition that had once held back an ocean was still damaged, and water cascaded down the far wall in a steady sheet of dark green. Beyond it, the stars visible through the station's transparent hull were sharp and clear. Gulm followed. The commander's heavy footsteps vibrated through the floor, and when he stopped beside Nash, his carapace diffused a soft light that reflected on the glass. They stood together for a long moment, a human and a Depthborn, two species that had come within a breath of annihilation. "I did not understand," Gulm said. "When I first saw your people in the holding cells, I did not understand why they cared for each other when they were going to die anyway. And now..." Gulm's mandibles clicked once. "Now I understand. They cared because the dying was not the point. The caring was the point. The weight of the bond mattered more than the length of the life." Nash nodded. "That's what the architects needed to see. That's what every species needs to learn. You don't measure a civilization by how long it survives. You measure it by what it's willing to risk for something other than survival. The Codex hummed softly from the medical bay. The void beacon in the corner of the observation deck flickered once, then emitted a signal that was not a weapon charge and not a distress call. It was a message, clean, simple, broadcast across all known dimensions. We seek students, not warriors. The door is open. Gulm's reflection stared back from the glass. What happens now? Nash looked out at the stars. The gold-marked ones pulsed in his memory, a web of pathways waiting to be walked. Now we go find out what else the architects left behind, he said, and we hope the next test is easier. He did not believe that, neither did Gulm. But they would go anyway. Out there, the hidden worlds waited. Beyond them, a network of reality bridges that could connect every species in the galaxy, if they were willing to take the risk. The void beacon pulsed once more, steady and sure, and the Codex began to hum a new pattern that no one had ever heard before.